we are. All right. Sorry about that. If you want, you can turn on. There's live transcript closed caption, and if you'd like to turn that on. Hello. Hello, welcome all. We've got a third person joining us. So, welcome to Demographics 101. My name is John Henry. As I mentioned before, I'm located at the headquarters branch in the Reference and Business Department. You can contact us with your questions. We'll have a slide at the end that'll leave up at the end that you can write down that information. You can also visit the St. Louis County. Try to get this down here. You can also visit the St. Louis County Library web page, which is slcl.org. And down at the bottom is some contact information. You can call us there. You can always email us and stuff like that. Well, once again, all that information will be presented at the end. All right. All right. So in the reference department, tell you a little bit about what we do. We can help you with all types of needs of library use with a variety of things such as e-media and a lot more things like that. Using the resources, a lot of the resources that I'll present today, you can give us a call up and we can help you out with that. Hopefully everybody has library cards. If you don't, once again, you can use that library page to start with a virtual card. And then you can visit one of the branches, your favorite branch, and get started with a full library card, which should give you access to this, depending on your residency. But yeah, it should give you full access to the library resources I highlight today. So just a few questions for you all. What brings you here today? Basically, why are you interested in demographics? So is there anybody that, yeah, what brings you here today? Just so I can maybe even focus on on a few things. You can go and place that in the chat, and I can read it, even though you might not be able to read it. Oh, thank you. So one person here works at the St. Louis Public Library Central and wants to benefit from the WIS. And I'm not exactly sure. I wonder if we share the same resources, but some of the resources I point out might be useful for you. Um, have you ever used or tried to use St. Louis County Library resources for any kind of demographics, or any other resources such as the U.S. Census or any other type of thing for certain demographics? All right. So I'm going to go on and start with the county card. Census first, about use some of the databases. We don't have, yeah, we have databases, and yeah, so you can always pick up the St. Louis County Library card and use that there if you live in the city, or in St. Charles City County area, as well as Jefferson County. Right now, you can pick up a reciprocal card. We just went to Jefferson County on the reciprocal cards, and those reciprocal cards will give you access to the databases. And we'll point out a few other things that might be useful for people that maybe don't even have a library card, just government information and a couple other private information, or not for profit companies that deal with some demographic information as well. So demographics, effectively, my sort of synthesis definition, as classically defined, is statistical data relating to different groups within a population or population area, the number of people and types of people within a particular region, including population trends over time. So those would be changes in population, how populations move across a map, across areas. And then you can begin to extrapolate what trends are there. It's going to be very useful for business, and we'll cover that. There are a few other types of demographics. Sometimes they go by different names. The USDA conducts an agricultural census every 5 years, so that's at the years ending in 7 and 2. The Commerce Department conducts an economic census. Sometimes that's called econographics. And you can also see, we're going to get into some things like business demographics, and sometimes you'll see that show up in literature as firmographics. Today, I'm just gonna, whenever I say Demographics. I'm just referring to all of these, just so I don't get any definition wrong. They'll all be demographics. So classical demographics, it's mainly focused on people, and it really begins to get an insight on what they're thinking. There are several surveys and other types of insights that we can build, and sometimes you'll see the term psychographics pop up. We're looking to find those and incorporate all these into various outcomes, whether it be tables or maps or other types of charts that you may want to create. Um, Maybe it seems obvious, but we'll look at a variety of the reasons we use demographics. Um, how many ways can we use demographics? I've come up with a few. Maybe you can see if maybe you can think of a few more, but there's a lot of ways we can use even just simple demographics out here. Now let's look at who uses or what organizations use demographic information. It's a long list. Do you have any other ideas who might use demographic information that might not be on here? Um, so I tried to kind of like gather the top users of infographics, or demographics. So we've got businesses, investors, planners, sociologists, governments, educators, epidemiologists, politicians, economists, even librarians. In our department, we've set up some, yeah, exactly, librarians. We've set up usage areas, and we can use some of our resources. I'm not going to get too 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 in depth on each resource. I'm going to kind of give you all an overview of all the different types of resources we have, but some of our databases, we've plugged in the use areas for our branches just to get demographics for each branch. And with those use areas, we can plug in and get when the new census comes out, we can get new information that come through. And the next thing is why would people want to use that? And I explained as to why to do is to kind of like for librarians, as we mentioned, serving our public librarians is serving the population that we have in our branch service areas or in our service area if they're a single kind of branch location, and to kind of plan accordingly for the future. So if you're a business person, maybe you're looking to expand, maybe you're looking to contract your business, maybe you're looking just how to kind of develop your business in other types of ways. Demographics can come in real handy here. Where you might want to begin focusing on funding, where you might want to plan for other things that might not be part of your service thing. You can also use those things, as I mentioned, that psychographic data, that market consumer research that can kind of tie into demographics. You can use that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur to figure out new products, to figure out what products may need to be discontinued. You may have your sales data, but you also need to see what's out there. See where there's some people that you might be underserving. See where you might be overserving. See where you need to market your information. So demographics can be used for a lot of variety of different things. All right. Let's go on. So if we view demographic data as a bucket full of information, where do all these little bits that fill in the bucket come from? We can see a few of the sources that begin to add up from these are government sources, and they all kind of just feed into the government info into demographic data. And so this is going to be something that the government usually wants to do, whether it be funding, service needs, congressional apportionment. We can just see some of the agencies that supply us with that data and pull the build on pertinent sets of demographic data for our needs. Though this data is usually open and free access to anybody that can have access to a computer or to a text. A lot of this is really being accessed through the web. Another sets come from private sources or non-government resources. Say private or publicly owned companies or anything like that. Um, they're not specifically spelled out here. They're just types of organizations. Um, these are organizations that take surveys, look at media viewing habits. Many of the organizations might charge for some of their information, but a lot of them release open reports, particularly the not-for-profits, and provide the data to the public. Uh, and the library does have access to some of these like kind of private surveys, and we'll kind of show you what those are, those kind of market-based research surveys. And all of it's going to feed into what we have for our market data. Um, So yeah, so they get more extensive, and you may have to pull out that raw data and kind of do your own combination of combining data for data systems. So let's look at the first, as I mentioned, the government resources. And these are things such as U.S. Census, American Community Survey, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Health and Human Services, Housing, Urban Development, and so on. And I'm gonna take you a step through some of these. Um, we'll do the first, the big one, the big demographic kind of elephant in the room. That's usually a bad term, but but the one we go to for a lot of our demographic information and more like the detailed stuff is the United States Census Bureau. The United States Census Bureau, obviously, they run the census, which is an exact counting of everyone in the United States. And and they also run the American Community Survey, which is a survey that which they call out. They typically try to hit 1 in 1,000 households, and ask some more detailed questions that the census doesn't cover. And it is a survey, so it's not an exact counting; it's an estimation with a little bit of margin of error in their guessing. And so the census helps them inform that that American Community Survey. Uh, but but the census is where that data is, and here on this on here at datacensus.gov. And just as a heads up, I should have explained this. This slideshow will be sent out to you within by the middle of the day tomorrow, and all these things have links to them, so you'll be able to access these links there when you're on there. So the U.S. Census is most easily accessible by going to data.census.gov. Forget about that other one; it's just going to take you right to this site. This is a new site. I've been learning it over the next year, and we have a wonderful new census that's released. But let's actually explore some of the data that the Census Bureau has. So if there's something you're interested in, topic you're interested in that might be demographically tied in, let's look at income. So here's income and earnings. So let's just go and click on that to start for a very particular census tool. Once again, the cover this would be a several hours of a sessions to cover how this goes. So I'm going to give us a simple search option here. So here we see when we do income and earning. Here's some basic tables that came up, and we can see right here. I mentioned that American Community Survey that pops up right away at the top here as where these charts come from. And most of this information is going to come from American Community Survey. And then I mentioned those economic surveys. Here's some economic surveys here. So we can begin by looking at tables, or if we want to build a map, we can build a map. I find this census tool, it's good for some things, but we have some other tools in the library that really work. I find their ease of use a lot more accessible than the census tool, and they get all the information from the census. All other data is pulled in from the Census and American Community Survey. So let's begin by looking at this chart here, or this table. So the income, if you want to go back in time, we're going to look at this first one, the 2019 one, which is the most recent one. You say, I thought it was the American Community Survey was every year. Well, get into the data about what the the U.S. Census has, and how they conduct the American Community Survey. The Community Survey for 2020 has been a good, not as good of guess as they have gotten in in the past years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. They weren't able to do as extensive surveying as they expected to do in 2020. So 2020 is kind of a hiccup year for them in that. So that's why they're giving us the best data. That other one, hopefully when 2021 is through, we'll have, when they release the data for 2021, we'll have better data here. So, um, so so you can see here we have the whole United States, but we also maybe want to compare certain locations. So we can get this table, and we can actually see how maybe the whole United States may want to compare to the St. Louis metropolitan area. So across the top here are ways you can begin to build your table. And I said we want to add in a geography, so we want to check maybe how the St. Louis metropolitan area is doing. And we can see here we've got the metropolitan statistical area. It's listed alphabetically. And we are far down in the alphabet. Has anybody tried to access census data in the past using the census browser? So we can go through here. First time. Yeah, this like I say, this census one does have access to basically all the data that the census has. I pers- personally I don't like to use it for a lot of things. It has a it does have its user interface takes a little bit of catch up. That's why I'm just spending a little time here to show us how we can like quickly access some information if we need something real fast. So here we have St. Louis metro area with household income, and if we can, I'm going to scroll across the bottom here. We can see how this chart looks. So scrolling up and down. I'm going to add in, what I'm going to add in here though, is I just have one geography put in, and I mentioned I wanted to compare it. So what I'm going to compare it to is I'm going to click on this geography button again, and I am going to add in for our partners across the state. Going to add in where is Kansas City? The Kansas City metropolitan area, and we can see how St. Louis compares to the Kansas City metropolitan area. So we have our two geographies here. And if we scroll across here, we'll see how St. Louis and Kansas City are there. Now, this is kind of like hard to navigate. And let's say you want to use this data for something else. You can either download it as a table, or you can actually export it to an Excel form. And this will Excel. I export it to CSV, which is a little bit more portability in Excel, and we can actually view this. Hopefully, it's going to open up for me. Sometimes these don't open up as best they can. Oh, it does look like that it's working for me. So we can actually see this data here. And if I had actually Excel on my computer, which I don't, but it's but you could, this would be a little bit better formatted, and you can actually have this Excel form, and you can use this if you have any kind of skill in Excel to build charts or anything like that. If you want to do that, to build charts, or this is a chart to yeah, to build charts from this table. So does anybody have questions about the U.S. Census data that we're going through? Like I said, I'm going to hit on a lot of different resources while we're here. Is there a particular type of census data you're interested in? And then maybe I can hit on that and see if the U.S. Census data will help you with that, or if one of our other resources, and I can kind of highlight that. All right. I mentioned the American Community Survey, and that is in there. This link is here. It's just going to be a quick, just a quick explanation of what the American Community Survey is from the Census Bureau. Just exactly what it is. It just this link from the American Community Survey just goes to that same data link I had before I was at before. So that's kind of a loop right there. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you're looking at unemployment data, how things move, so they're both kind of under this is the Department of Labor, but they take a lot of information here about unemployment and some other economic data, and kind of combine that in with uh, demographic information. We can see a long list of the data tools that they have here. So you can even break down your unemployment statistics by state and metro area that they have in labor force statistics. So if you're doing on something like a workforce development or something like that, this might be useful for you here. If you're looking at regional prevailing wages in a region, as to maybe if you're running a business and you want to see what might be best to attract employees, particularly if you're attracting employees, you've looked at what the labor force maybe looks like in your area, and you're not seeing that you have it there, and you want to attract workers. This is an interesting. You can use some of these statistics to begin to find what you may want to kind of focus in on there. So let's see here. We have, what did I look at? Oh, usually takes you to the same thing here. Let's see. Yeah. Employment hours and earnings. State news release tables. So you can download it as a PDF, and you can see non-farm payrolls, change in employment, and such in an area as well. So your Bureau of Labor Statistics is one good place to go for a lot of information here. And it ties in the consumers' price data, consumer price index, which is in inflation, and you can track that right here. So, all right. Other sources are Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development. The Small Business Administration has that. One thing I want to point people to is the Center for Disease Control. Does have information, and this is for a lot of public health data, the National Center for Health Statistics. And so it has mortality data in an area. And this is something that the mortality data that the census pulls in on, you always see the estimates on populations. So mortality, they've got family growth and they have birth rates. So they track births and deaths in an area. And this is how they kind of keep track of those statistics on births and deaths in an area. And then there's other things that the census monitors for their estimates about new homes being built, movement, new homes being purchased, and the like. So labor statistics by occupation, you should be able to, let's see here, I'll do that. Thank you for that question. I'll go back to the Bureau. I got a question, Kenny. Labor statistics by occupation. You should be able to, let's see, inflation, employment. Let's see the table here. There is, let's see if we have monthly employment data. This is a pretty in-depth site. Employed persons by industry and occupation. So I'm going to open up the HTML. It might be a little bit faster. Actually, I'll actually do the PDF here. So here's employed persons by industry and occupation. So where they're employed by industry, and I've seen more detailed options here. But here's in manufacturing, and it should be also broken down. There should be a regional section. There's a section that should be the St. Louis. It's called like the Grand Prairie region. For this as well. Let's see here. So there's some customized tables. Click on Missouri. So here's education and health services, changes in the areas of employment. Let's see if I click on this as a detail, what this has. This might take me in a circle here. Sometimes these sites are set up like that, or somehow the mountain plains from Missouri. Of course, Illinois will be another side. These are just the regional offices, but there should be tables in the industry where they're employed. I'm not sure about exact occupation in that, but definitely the type of industry that you see the most employment in. So places maybe like in the West, in the Mountain West, you might see more employment in like logging, and like places like Texas, maybe more in like the extraction industry than you would necessarily in Missouri. Um, and that would be laid out in numbers here in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They get rather in depth on that. And with these tables, you can also pull out the raw data, and there's other ways to access the tables in the data tools. you can in there, the popular series here. Ah, that's a little more complex to get into here. So here we are. What we showed before. There's a data finder and there's one screen. There's just different ways you can extract the data. No problem. Yeah, this is something you can explore a little bit more. This is government information, and this is accessible from just about everywhere. You can have internet access. So we'll go back onto the CDC, and this is where the data is here. Obviously, a lot of coronavirus information, but CDC Wonder has the mortality data. They also have, if you're looking at injuries, they have injuries. They have emergency room visits and such. So it's really interesting to be used here. So yeah, so it's a chart and set up. I don't know if people are interested in public health data. I might actually do a separate one for that, develop that in the future too. OSHA has injuries and deaths. One thing I want to point to, I mentioned the agricultural census, which gives demographic information based on farms and what isn't a farm. And so this is a census of farms and agricultural use. So it literally is a count of the number of farms and the size of farms that exist in the United States and where they're broken down by. You can pull up charts that have even track the number of, the census counts people. The agriculture census will count pigs, cattle, and other types of livestock as well. So it's a really fascinating thing there if you're ever interested in agriculture, and there's other sub-censuses as well. And this is a complete census that goes through. So it's they attempt to count every farm. So yeah. So it's a really interesting census here. It's usually published, and you just look at the charts that they have, and then that data is also extractable as well, and usually CSV or Excel form. And then once again back to public health on the state level. A lot of states, their Department of Health and Senior Services or Health Services, it has a different. They usually go by a different name in each state, but they also oftentimes have their local health data and what the state might be focused on here. One of the main things for Missouri is the Missouri Information for Community Assessment. So they have births and deaths, women, infant, and children, women, infant, children on support there, deaths, population service. So this is more the general information, but you can pull out the information for the state as it goes down as to what they have. Yes. So this has this information here just specifically for Missouri. And then one of the things I want to point out is I'm going to also do a couple ways you can look globally. And one of the things, a government resource is the CIA World Factbook, which is really more of an encyclopedia on that, but they do give some really basic demographic information on nations around the world. So let's say, for instance, Germany. They'll have a real quick kind of rundown of that. And here we are, people in society. So they'll give a population. They'll tell you about ethnic groups in a nation, languages spoken, officially recognized minority languages, the religion breakdown. Because it's going to be real basic information on populations globally on various nations. But yeah, so that's a resource, especially if you want just that real quick basic information. This is one that gives that for a global country. All right. If you have any questions about government resources, what I'm going to move on to next is going to be some of our library resources. I don't know if anybody's using any of the library resources to begin to look at demographic information. I'm going to start with this basic one. It's intellect, which is going to give us which is you can access both demographic information, consumer information, so those like psychographic stuff, and then some of the business demographic options. So to access these databases, I'll take you through the path as to go. So we'll go to the St. Louis County Library webpage. If you go to the research section, if you know the name of the resource, you can go to resources A to Z. This particular resource is Emergent Intellect, so we can hop in. We'll go down and we'll see Emergent Intellect here. Now, when you click on the name, it's going to ask you to log in. Hopefully, it's going to do that for me. If you're not in a library location. If you're at one of the public computers, um, if you're at one of the public computers, it won't ask you for this information, but you'll just log straight into this opening screen. Here we see on the homepage for Emergent Intellect, voila, here are demographics. The reason I'm showing Emergent Intellect is if you want that a real quick demographic information, this is a place to go. If you really want to drill down, go back to that census information or kind of mid-range on the next couple of resources I'm going to show you. But this is a real quick one. If you know some zip codes, so we'll go and plug in some local zip codes that I've selected. And we'll do the library zip code. So we'll do one West County zip code, a South City zip code, and then the library zip code. And hopefully this resource will actually let me do the thing I want to do. There we go. So they've done a pin on the map to kind of pin the center of each one of these zip codes. You can see down here they just display some of the quick information. You can always click View Census to view that. They're going to have some pre-made reports as long with some options to download the forms in Excel files. So you've got your PDF will be pre-made options here for you. Looks like that they have not updated the 2020 census yet on this. So here's the information here. So if you're looking at, I mentioned that market information. So here's some buying income. Now with Emergent Intellect, when you select these options, so you can select the trend, and we could do a snapshot. Let's say you want to do. We're going to also do a prism option, which prism is a we'll open that up. It's a market segmentation. So if you're interested in market segmentation, it gets into more of those the psychographics I mentioned before. So it's like the generational breakdown. It's broken down by kind of generations, and then it's broken down by income within those within the generations, and just timing on that developed. So it's very much a highly targeted option. You can see what the names are here. On this. So you've got urban, suburban, second city, and you have the sub breakdowns on that prism breakdown. So now once you selected, the little square will appear here in Emergent Intellect, and you can see my email. They will email you the files. So I'm going to build the file, and it's going to be sent to my email. I'm going to continue discussing about Emergent Intellect because it takes a couple minutes for those files to be sent in there. All right. So we can also search businesses. So this would be like a business demographic. So we can see the number of businesses in an area under certain types of ownerships or anything like that you may be interested in. So if we go to advanced search, we can go here. So advanced search is a way that we can look for companies, and we can begin to see, we can look at location, industry size, financial information, and keywords. So location, I'll use the St. Louis metropolitan area as an example. So you can select the metro area, or you can select individual cities, area codes, zip codes. You can even do a map-based search. Mergent Intellect is probably of the resource I'm going to show you here today. It's probably the least usable maps. So I don't like to even show the map search, but you can do a radius search up to 5 miles from the center point in Mergent Intellect. See a long list of the metro areas. It's the same metro areas that the census has. So you can see it here. With them, it runs left to right and then down. So if we select St. Louis, Missouri, we put that in there, and we already have 337,000 plus companies in the area. But we're interested in maybe looking at some information. Maybe we want to know the number of minority-owned businesses in the St. Louis metropolitan area that qualify as a minority-owned based on Mergent Intellect's option here. We have 2,406 companies that identify as minority-owned. We can even narrow it down to maybe women-owned or anything like that. But then we can begin to pick out particular industries. So for the St. Louis area, we can see how many companies are maybe in a particular industry. So let's look broadly at wholesale and retail trade for our chosen types here. So wholesale and retail trade, minority-owned businesses in the St. Louis metropolitan area. This is broadly the wholesale and retail trade, are broad sort of retail establishments. We have 250 companies found. And so this is how we could begin to build a list of a local kind of a business census for us. We're looking at that type of demographic. And this may help us if we're working on grants or just to get information about that. So yeah, and you can begin to add in financial information, cash flow, total revenue, and other types of options that you can begin to narrow down in Mergent Intellect. So let me check my inbox here. And it will be at the top here. Oh, there we are. And here are my files that I've downloaded. And we can see the PDF files. So I'm going to go and open up one of the PDF files and just kind of show you what those look like from Mergent. So here's a demographic snapshot, and it's got a little chart. It's got a chart for each one of our zip codes up there, and kind of how they compare to each other. It's a basic demographic snapshot, so it's really just kind of numbers. But it lets us know if we're looking at ancestry. Here's foreign ancestry or foreign-born population by race, anything like that. If we're looking at maybe choosing a location for a business, or maybe other information. Like I say, Lisa mentioned earlier that that for public libraries, you can put in the zip codes that you might serve, and you can see how those zip codes lay down. So if you're trying to collect for people who speak certain languages or something like that a little bit stronger, you can begin to focus on which branch you want those to show mostly up at or be filtered back to. Here, you mentioned employment. Steph, right? No, Seth, yeah. Here's some here's where individuals work. Here's in that chart right there. Oh, you are. Aha. That's why, because I am sharing one window with you and not this one. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to get back to doing that. Thanks for telling me about that. We'll get back to the share. Is kind of a little bit funky on the all right. So here's a PDF. Sorry about that. All right. You're seeing this screen now here for the for the charts with the three zip codes laid out. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the heads up on that. With Zoom, you can share like one tab or the whole screen. So I'm going to share my whole screen so you can watch me navigate around. So um So I went down and I showed you at the top that you have the zip codes broken down. Of course, you can choose municipalities. You can choose your metro areas. I believe with Merchant you can choose census block groups, maybe, but some of the other resources I showed will have that census block groups here. So it has here, and you mentioned employment in an area and types of stuff. So you can make it broader or further. Where was I before when I noticed that? So here's your 2022 estimated civilian population employed 16 over by occupation. So here's your information right here for some of that, if that's something you might be interested in. So yeah, and if they drive to work, if they commute, how long their commute is. So a lot of interesting information. The age of the housing stock, and a lot of information like that. So that's emergent intellect, and this is the what's called the demographic snapshot. And you don't, with emergent intellect, you can add five different geographies. With some other ones, you can add even more geographies. The reason I keep it to three is, as you can see, if I kept it to more, these pages would add up, and you would have to start to put the pages side by side. Just a good demonstration. All right. We're back. We are back to the emergent intellect screen, which you were staring at for minutes as I was yammering on. All right. All right. So the next resource is called reference solutions. I'm going to do a real quick look at that. I'm not going to spend too long on it. It's not the best resource. The best resource will be a thing called demographics now. So reference solutions, we've got the home axis. And we have consumers and lifestyle. So this really is going to get you into the con consumer graphics, the psychographics, the what we're using to look at what consumers look like in an area. So I'm going to focus on the three zip codes I looked at before as an example here in reference solutions. 1 second, my coffee. So once you can add in once again by census tract, county, you can add metro area. We can update the count. So these are households in these particular zip codes. We can even focus down to one per household instead of several individuals per household. And we can look at their lifestyle. So we might want to say maybe people that are interested in pets and animals in an area here. So we can update the count, see how many people have scored. You can see the data right here have, this is kind of, this works more of as a survey as the people that have, that look to have the most interest in pets and animals in these areas that have a high, that top third interest there. We can even, if you want to begin to narrow it down, we can look at individuals by income. Now, once you go down here to this consumer snapshot, you begin to build, you'll just build charts. You won't build individuals' names. Yeah, that's excellent way to use this. So you can see this. I don't know if there's a way to do exclusion, but you can definitely begin to look at your. So you could let's say you want to use this resource. For instance, you're opening up a pet shop or something like that. For this example, um, you can begin to see where the view results is it's working, where the area is, where the zip codes are where there's the most interest. So you can begin to exclude. So if you have the choice of, let's say, 5 zip codes, you can choose the one that looks to be the least saturated. Demographics now is going to be the really one that's going to help you with that. And I'll just give a real quick example on that. So let's do. So these are people interested in pets, broken down by zip code in the area. Let's see here how this turns out. So these are people interested in pets in these zip codes. and those three zip codes I displayed. Once again, re- reference solutions is the best for certain things. I'm going to point us to, I'm going to give a little longer demonstration on demographics now for you. This is probably going to help you more with that kind of research here. So in demographics now, once again, to access that, we have the library webpage, research, resources A to Z, D for demographics now, and right here, demographics now for libraries, business and people is the full name. I'm going to keep on calling demographics now. And as it loads up, we set so we can begin to set a geography here. So we can actually pull from a geography list. And just as we had before, we can choose the zip codes or anything like that. But let's say you want to just kind of select a point on a map. You can kind of zoom into an area, and we've got these geometry tools. So we can do it north, and update that geography, and we can set another geography here. So we can draw on a map. So that's kind of the North County area, and we can do, we'll call it there. We'll call this South for kind of a basic South County area. So these are going to be our two geographies we're going to compare. Like we had zip codes before, we're going to have the two geographies we can compare or we can summarize using this here. So we've set our geographies in demographics now. So it's like so all the data we pull out will look at those two areas. And while I'm here at the map, you mentioned seeing an area saturated with a type of product. So actually, when you're on a map, you can build a map here. When it's set the geography first, but you can choose variables, and the variables are going to be age of population and other stuff like that. But the thing that demographics now is they do have market reports for areas. So we have Simmons product profiles. So if we pull that down, we also have retail demand is another thing that might be interested. And since we were dealing with pets before, we'll just go into pets and pet food. We'll have households interested in, actually we'll do by percentage. We'll do household percentages interested in wet and moist dog food, for instance. Percentage of households that are assumed to purchase wet and dry dog food. We'll stick with the pet theme. These are down, this auto-select has this at block groups, which is the smallest unit of census. So each one of these areas that the census pulls out is a block group. So you can also do census tracts, which are a little bit larger, zip codes, and other kind of geographies here. So it's thinking, as you go on, what we're going to see is a map that's going to have, voila, a map of areas that have a higher concentration of people that are interested in that wet dog food. So these census blocks that are the reddest have a have an interest above 24.81. So this is kind of like a a rating. It's like out of 100 that or percentages of households that have an interest, like we had with reference solutions, have a high interest in this. So about 24 above 24.81% of the households in this darkest red are interested in getting that wet dog food. So yeah, so this might be very helpful for you. So this is just in this maps tab section across the top of demographics now. But I'm going to move on, and I'm going to show you a couple different options here in the demographics section to do that here. So that's your psychographics or your market infographics that we have here. So we can have a basic search. Let's see when those searches I was going to run. So we can do a basic, we can do a comparison of these two areas by a consumer expenditure comparison report. Or if you're, let's say you're interested in, this is very broad stuff, so a restaurant detailed report. So consumer expenditure and restaurant report, if let's say opening up a restaurant or anything like that. As we run this report, these basic reports will be like how much the household income is, and how much of that income they are estimated to spend on certain types of food products, for instance. So this might be useful for you in finding that information there. What one of the two areas have higher spending in the area, and higher spending in a particular retail demand market. Now, that basic has its basic. Now you can build advanced options as well. So we already ran with pets and pet food. We'll do that here again. We're going to once again run a comparison. You can also run a rank. So if you have two, the comparison's real easy with a rank. What um what demographics now automatically does is it picks your main variable and it will rank that variable. And then the summary is going to take those two areas and squish them all together into one unit for you. So pet. So we have what was I? So we had Simmons product profiles, which is what we ran on the map before. And we had pet and pet food. Mostly the number of adults interested in. Where did we do this before? This is just number of, so wet and moist dog food, I think I had before. The households that buy that, the number of households in these areas that buy that. So those other geographies are predefined, and you can begin to define your own geographies here. And we can see the number of households in these areas. Now, I don't know if I've made them the same size or what their density is, but that's what turns out. So households in these two areas interested in that are buying wet dog food. And you can actually with this you can actually add more variables if you'd like, for instance. We can run this again here. And also, if you want, we can run the percentage as well. So we'll do this with all these variables here. So we can see here in the north, households in that area, how many households have one dog or more, and the north section is 41%, whereas the south section has 14%. And there's a higher instance in that north circle that we had on the map of people buying the wet dog food. So, as opposed to where they're south, they're more interested in buying dry dog food. So you can see how you can really build this information and really get granular with what information they have in demographics now. It's a resource I really like. I'm gonna show one more resource, and that's Social Explorer. And that's a library resource. And once again, A to Z. Well, if you all want to, if you have the time, you can stick around. If you don't, I'll if you both have the time, there's two people here. I can slow this down and kind of cover this about another 10 more minutes or so. Stretch it out there if you'd like. If not, I'll kind of race through this. Go and tell me what you'd like. But yeah, we can do that if you want. So look at the real quick rundown of Social Explorer. It has ways to explore maps and also tables as well. I'm going to open up the tables in a separate section to get to that as well. So you can explore in Social Explorer. It has not only a demographics now just has US data, and the reason I kind of point out Social Explorer, a couple of reasons. It has a lot of different data sets it works from. Not only it works from American Community Survey, which demographics now has, and some other market information, but it has just different data sets that it works with. And so it's a thing that if you don't find it in one, I suggest you using the other one too. They have a slightly different interface that takes a little bit of getting used to. But if you scroll down here, you see with Social Explorer, they also have foreign detailed censuses. So they have European censuses, UK censuses, Irish, a lot of different things here too. So that's what's a really useful thing I like to point out about Social Explorer. If you're studying other nations, or perhaps you're in a business and want to do like some export information, or try to do whatever you want to use it with. So let's go and just explore this United States map here. And you're going to see this interface looks somewhat similar to what demographics now interface is. It's going to be a map of the United States, broken down. As you zoom in, it's going to auto adjust to the size of the geographic area. It's the default when you set it come in as the population density, but you can change your data here. And so you can look at, so you asked about employment sector. We can look at employment sector and see where people are employed, and percentages of people employed in various different sectors. And you can build different types of maps. So it's going to be a bubble one, so it's going to have the number of individuals in that as opposed to comparison. The information it has health, it has housing information, housing value, people living in group quarters. So let's actually look at housing information, and we'll look at owner occupied units here. For instance, if you're looking at that, this out. And you can change the map to be a shaded area or bubble area. And some certain data sets cannot be expressed in one way or another, and so you'll be limited on that. But yeah, so you'll see them a number of owner occupied units in St. Louis County, and as you go in, you can you can even change manually change the place that you choose, your geography level. So here's so each municipality. So the census places only include or census designated places. They don't choose certain other areas, as you see with rural kind of areas that might be kind of pointed out. So when you're doing a census place, it won't be there, but the census tracks will have that broken out. And county subdivisions might be useful for you too if you're doing that type of information. So they're just going to have your townships labeled out here. Now, not only here, you can also mask map data, so you can just pick up data for your selected areas. So in these county subdivisions, do this. So if you're just looking at, let's say you're just focused on West County, you can choose these kind of subdivisions here. You can click done. And it's just going to highlight on your map what these areas is. When you have this highlighted, if you hit auto adjust, it'll take that data and re-break it out to the quintile shading. So your highest quintile will be typically your darkest, and your lowest quintile will be your lightest. So for instance, Town and Country has 90.7% owner occupied homes, whereas Manchester, Creve Coeur have, well, they're the Creve Coeur Township has about 63% owner occupied homes. So a fair amount of rental units there, whereas a neighboring township has a high occupancy rate. Just for instance, and as you maybe saw when I went through the data, that there is a lot of data to work with here. And they've got the agriculture census and other types of things, quality of life, other things, crime data, and other things like that you don't find in the other one, in demographics now. You can even do comparison maps if you want to compare side by side over time. Do that. You can even export these maps. You can create a report just from your selected maps, and this will create a table. Yeah, you have to reselect the geographies, but your geographies are already highlighted. So you can go in here, and then you can create that table that's going to be laid out as we had before. So you can see that demographic information laid out here. All right, I'm going to move on. Social Explorer I'm going to skip D&B Hoovers. It's really good for business information and pulling up where businesses are located. There, and next we're going to have other resources. So there's the UN Population Division, and once again, these links are pulled out here that has UN data um, for information. Pew Research Center. So if you're looking at that market things, both Pew and Nielsen, typically they're going to a lot of the more detailed information is going to be you're going to have to pay for it, but they do release some reports that might be of use, especially on a national scale, regional scale, and that granular stuff, as we saw before, aren't as accessible. National Association of Realtors has a lot of public facing things. No problem. I will email you the slideshow, and the YouTube video will be up in a few days, about 3 or 4 days, business days after we're done. All right, thank you. So the National Association of Realtors has that here in housing and the different changes they kind of track. They sort it out by metropolitan area, so that might be of use. And they'll have trends that they may be focused on more than the American Community Survey does. And National Association of Realtors, they also pull data from the American Community Surveys to inform their data. World Health Organization, one here, eMarketeer. Did I not do that link right? That's just, there's various different types of think tanks. And then we have Opportunity Atlas, which allows you to do longitudinal searches for people from where they grew up to the success they have. Um, it is it's built by it uses Census data, but it's built and it's a very accessible mapping options that's publicly available. If you're doing longitudinal studies, particularly if you're doing something with education or impacts over years, you can begin to study areas and you can kind of toggle in household income, crime in neighborhoods, children living in poverty, people out of poverty, employment, um, age of first birth and teenage birth rate. So you can really kind of toggle this in. It's a very good option here. And then we have Our World in Data, which is a global resource, and you can see all these universities and everything that contribute in here. So this is kind of a kind of clearinghouse for a lot of data that comes in through papers and studies that are made publicly available, and it tries to integrate it here. So it's built by University of Oxford, or Oxford University, as well as Harvard University and other things like that. So it can explore all different types of data that you may want. So for instance, specifically on demographic change, you can look at world population growth, future population growth. It doesn't get as granular on geography as the other resources that I highlighted earlier, but you might find it useful, especially if you're doing international studies. So yeah. So I'm going to go on to my last slide and just kind of leave it open if you have any other questions. So I'm going to send you a PDF of this slideshow, just a handout. This was developed as an in-person class, so I do have a handout. Just has a few demographic kind of quick glossary. Just has the name of these resources for you. Yeah, so you should be expecting that, and then look for the YouTube video in, like I say, about 3 to 5 business days. As the people that deal with that, as I send them the recording and then they post it up on YouTube. So I thank you very much. I'm going to go and stick around for a few minutes. This contact us information will stay up. Talk to me in the chat. By about 4:10, I'll go and end the whole Zoom meeting unless everybody hops out. All right. Thank you so much for your time.